But do we have quorum?
I believe we do now, Mr. Chair.
All righty.
I'm launching YouTube here. Ah, crap. Mr. Chair, do you see my screen now?
I surely do.
Okay.
All righty. Good. Again, good evening to everybody. Hopefully you're well rested. You enjoy this beautiful Monday. And so, yes, I'm going to call this meeting to order. So we will do a roll call with our newly elected Miss Alicia Smith. You can call the roll.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Von Barnes, I guess you're president, yes. Shanika Bynum.
She had requested an absence for this month.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Rachel Eberhard.
Requested absence.
Oh, yes, requested absence. Leah, is it Eford?
Yes,
Or
ma'am.
Effort?
I'm here. Eford. Yeah, you're right the first time.
Eford. Okay, thank you, Leah. Dr. Monique Holsey-Hyman.
Present.
Donald Hughes. Okay, I skipped Michelle Ketchum.
She's requested absence as well. She's on leave, I believe, through this month, maternity leave.
Okay. Richard LeBennett. Jillian Riley.
Present.
Did I get Donald Hughes?
You did. You said that one. You said his name.
Did he say present?
I don't know. Let me see if he's.
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, I don't believe he's here.
I don't think he's on the call right now.
Okay. Okay. So Adam Seda.
Yes, present.
Okay, and then Ebony West.
I requested absence.
She requested
And then
absence.
yes, our staff support, Reginald J. Johnson. I think he's here. Matt. Present. Matt Schnars.
Present.
And City Council Member Liaison Pierce Freelon. I thought I saw him.
He's present on the call. He may.
Oh, can you hear me? Hello, sorry.
Yeah, we can hear. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Get
I
that
have an
Shure
external
microphone.
mic.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Great.
Studio Shure microphone.
Right.
Well, that completes the roll call. Did I miss anyone?
I'm here. You missed me.
Yeah.
Brian? Oh, how could I miss you, Brian? And then Carl. Okay, Brian's here.
Brian and
And
Carl.
Carl Newman. Carl Newman and Brian. Okay, got you. Sorry about that. Thank you. I've
And,
added you.
Madam
Oh,
Secretary.
you know what? Yes. Yeah.
Madam Secretary, I just want to mention Terry Porter Holmes is also on the call. She is also a staff member, a community development assistant director.
Okay, so that's Terry with an I, Porter Holmes.
Yes, ma'am.
No
Thank you.
hyphen. No hyphen.
No hyphen. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Thank you. So I've also added, I've added you as well. Thank you. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Miss Smith Freshwater. We have to rib Carl and Brian only because they weren't here last week. So congratulations, Brian, on being reelected as vice chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Appreciate your leadership. All right, we're going to go right to the second action item, which is approving of the minutes. So hopefully you read your minutes If there's any anything that needs to be added to the minutes, we can do so now. If not, then I will add one thing. So just for the future, it's a capital V in my name. My mama would not be happy if I didn't correct it, but that's okay. If there's nothing other than grammatical errors, you can always shoot Alicia your grammatical errors, if there are any. If not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
It's moved, and can I get a second?
Second, Dr. Hunter.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. All those in favor of approving the September minutes? No, excuse me, the August minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All righty, the minutes have been approved. We're going to go right into action item number 3, which is the procurement and request for funding proposal summary. And I will pass the mic to Mr. Schnars.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, members of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Matt Schnars, I'm the staff planning and performance manager, community development, and your host for the CAC meetings. The executive committee, as we were making the agenda last week, we wanted to just follow up on some of the conversation from last meeting around procurement, requests for funding proposals, and have just a couple of key points here, and may not take 20 minutes that we have allotted for this item on the agenda, but want to have a brief discussion and maybe be able to answer any questions that you may have. So procurement, we have a few that are either current or underway, and those are, one is the Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG, CARES Act funding, and that was a process that began in August and actually was closed right at the end of August, right as we were reconvening our meetings. So that's one that is in process right now. I mean, it's finished. It's just the actual final decisions and approval process has not happened yet. And then we have the Lead and Healthy Homes program, which is a HUD grant that we have through the department. We have one coming up. It's a sealed bid process, and it's slated for this October. So those are the two that are current or underway. And then beyond that, upcoming that you'll hear more about in the near future, we have the multifamily rental production preservation. We don't have a definitive timeline or date for that right now, but that will be one that will be soon to come in the fall. And then we have something called the Continuum of Care, which is another HUD grant program. That's a process that's got some alignment through our department, and some members of the Citizen Advisory Committee have been more familiar, involved with that in the past. And the funding process for that was announced by HUD in August, and there's a deadline for the submission of a document that we have to organize and submit for the funding, and that process basically is required to occur in November 2021. And then we also have something called coordinated entry, which is also associated with the homeless housing system. The continuum of care is also a homeless housing specific process. And then coordinated entry is another homeless housing specific process that we've got slated for December of 2021. And so then I created just a bullet point summary, and I'm just going to stop sharing change documents really quickly. Just go through high level. So can you see should see a Word document on the screen. Hopefully it says procurement process overview. Mr. Chair, you see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So what I did was just really try to boil down what sometimes seems pretty complicated and complex, tried to boil it down into some really hopefully bite-sized chunks overview of the procurement process so that members can just sort of be grounded in this. And then, like I said, we can open this up for some questions and discussion after I go through this one-page bullet point that I'll also include, send out to everyone after the meeting. So what is procurement? So procurement's a kind of an overarching term that we use to describe different ways that the city solicits for goods or services from third-party businesses or vendors. And then the most common types of procurement, and this isn't, all inclusive, but these are the ones that are used most frequently and that would be something that members of the committee might be involved with. So request for proposals is this RFP is the shorthand term for that. And request for qualifications is RFQ. That's another type of procurement. And then sealed bids or bid process is the third sort of major process that we use to solicit for goods or services in the city. And then next question that you might be interested to, what are the factors that determine how the city makes procurement decisions and the process? So there's a few main ones that drive what type of a process that we use. The funding source is the first most important one, depending on what funding we use, whether it be federal or city funding or a combination of federal and city funding. That's going to, drive what type of a process, what's involved. And then also funding amounts. So we have procurement processes that are, very small amounts of money, maybe like less than 10,000 or even less than that, up to millions of dollars into a process. And that's a major factor that requires us to make various decisions based on, based on those factors. Another factor is what type of good or service or program are we trying to solicit for funding. So depending on if it's a homeless housing service or if it is affordable housing development, developing units of affordable housing, or if it's to get a consultant to do some type of a service for us. Those are factors that are going to determine how we go about making determine which type of process we use. And then there's typically, depending on the funding source, there's going to be guidelines that are going to be specified by that funding source that might factor in to how long of a process we'll have, or what type of process we use. And then the other factor is that whether the alignment with the consolidated plan or the annual action plans or the city strategic plan or affordable housing goals and affordable housing bond plan, those are factors that also that we have to consider whenever we make a decision on how we're going to do a procurement process. So then another key question, then how are funding decisions made? So this is also going to vary, depending on what happens in number 1 and number 2 above. And for competitive RFPs, request for proposals, which is probably the primary one that we use that most folks are familiar with, the method for services is typically involves an objective scoring and ranking of proposals using a predefined scoring rubric. So we would develop a scoring rubric that would, factor in how we would make that decision. And then that scoring rubric would be used to rank and score the proposals. And so typically that's staff members from our department that partner with members of other city departments and members of the CAC and or other relevant subject matter oriented members of boards and commissions to evaluate proposals to score and rank them. And so it's once again, this is driven by which type of procurement we're going to use and which funding source. And then what we'll do is then we'll use that process, use that scoring rubric, and we'll aggregate the scores from each of the different participants of the panel. And we use that to then come up with sort of a ranking of the proposals and which ones would be the highest ranking and lowest ranking. And this is usually, but not always, requires final city council approval. So typically these processes go through, and then we decide that we're going to fund or not fund different proposals. And then the final decision typically, but once again, not always, is involves final review and approval by city council for the contract that we would then have. And so the other final kind of question that I thought would be relevant, or if I'm a member of the CAC, is so how do I as a CAC member contribute to this scoring, ranking, and decision-making process, and what does it entail? And so the way that we have it right now is that we kind of made it so that you can volunteer to participate on these panels based on your level of interest and level of time that you might be able to commit to that. And it would involve, reading proposals and using the scoring and ranking rubric to score and rank the proposals, and then to have a subsequent follow-up meeting with the members of the panel to make the decision. And key point here is the amount of time and level of commitment is going to vary, pretty substantially based on some of the items that we talked about in the first two bullet points on the sheet. And so that's kind of just very high level. That's kind of trying to abbreviate, what is sometimes seen as a pretty complicated, cumbersome process into some primary bullet points. So, Mr. Chair, I'll just pause there and defer back to you for questions, or open up to the panel for questions and further discussion.
Thank you, Matt, for helping us understand RFPs better. There's a question. I think Ms. Freshwater has a question.
Yes, I do have a question. So when it comes to reviewing proposals, how do you ensure that there are not conflicts of interest with the reviewers, especially members of the CAC? And then my second question is, are the reviewers required to sign non-disclosure agreements?
Great question. And so, yes, reviewers are required to not have a conflict of interest, and reviewers are expected to sign a non-disclosure agreement, or an agreement that they don't have such a conflict. And that also brings up an important point that I need to follow up with the CAC members, is that we need all of you to actually annually sign an agreement that would basically articulate this as much. And that's something that, I'm glad you raised that, because that's something I had forgotten about. As we usually at the beginning of each year with the CAC, we have each member, sign one of these agreements, and we have that on file so that if something does come up, that we have it on file. And if you would happen to have a conflict of interest, which we do have, CAC members that are maybe on boards of organizations that would be, asking for funding, or they may be employees of organizations that would be, part of an RFP process, you would not, the expectation is that you would not be involved in that scoring and ranking process, and that you would disclose that you have conflict of interest. So that's a very important point to raise. Good question.
Thank you for answering that. So is it just self-disclosure? We go by the honor system? I'm not trying to be, dogmatic, but I just want to make sure that.
It is, and I don't know if Mr. Johnson would have more to say that, but essentially it's the expectations you sign this agreement and it's a binding agreement, the non-disclosure agreement or the conflict of interest form. And we don't do serious forensic sort of analysis of that. We expect the board members to be honest, and I don't recall any substantial issues that have ever been that have ever come to light, but it is something that it is something that's very important that we have to have in place.
Any other questions from the committee? I kind of want, Carl, are you still there?
I was just sparing people from watching me eat.
Well, we appreciate that. I definitely, this is not necessarily on the agenda, but I wanted you to kind of talk about your experience in scoring, because I know you're one of the members who scores a lot. And just talk about your experience with that and the process.
I actually haven't done it in a little while, although I'd be very happy to do it again. The proposals are going to come with a rubric. I have been on the other side of similar RFPs before. And so, I actually think it's usually pretty straightforward. It's not a ton of reading, and generally speaking, the applicants are pretty good about organizing their response in such a way that's going to be easy for you to go through the rubric pretty quickly. Then we met with staff and, had a not terribly long meeting where there was really some consensus about who was the sort of going to be the recommended applicant out of the process. I really enjoyed the whole thing, getting to work with staff and also sort of getting to know more about the work that's being done with these grant dollars and getting to know a little bit more about the kinds of organizations, local or otherwise, who are applying for the grants. So I recommend you do it, even though it sounds like reading a bunch of paperwork and writing down numbers. It is actually part of the sort of real work of getting this work done in our community.
Call for that. You can go back to eating now.
And not to put him on the spot, but Mr. Langloss, Dr. Langloss has also been involved. He was involved in the lead grants last year, and he may have a comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have much to say. You get the rubric and the proposals. It's kind of nice reading through it to see kind of a little bit more in depth what these kind of proposals actually are and what people are trying to do around the city. And the thing that I found interesting is I've only done it a few times, and I was always kind of concerned, like, oh, I don't really know this topic super well, or I don't really know, I have no past experience with it, so how do I rate something on 1 to 10 or whatever if I don't really know how it compares to other things. But one thing I like is then getting back together with everyone that was doing the grading and seeing what people picked, what people had graded, any reasoning, and that was kind of nice because then I feel like it helped really kind of hone in as I did a few more to really kind of know what to look for and how to grade things, and that was kind of cool. So
appreciate both input. I encourage members to, as you get the emails for different RP proposals, if you want to score and help with that process, make sure you reach out to Matt. And that way you can say, hey, I'm invested into where your tax dollars, our tax dollars are going. We definitely want to have some input on that. So I appreciate both of y'all. I want to add to the minutes. I did get an email from Donald Hughes asking for an excused absence because he's under the weather. So I thought I'll put that in.
Mr. Chair, if you wouldn't mind just forwarding that to us if he didn't copy us on there, that'd be great.
Yeah, I will forward that to you, man.
Thank you.
Minute. I guess we can go to the next. Oh, any other questions that we had for Matt before we move on?
Mr. Chair, if I could just make one other point is that, you know, the processes vary greatly. We have processes where we get either no proposals that are, you know, meet the required sort of basic threshold, or we may get one, like with the lead grant, for example. Last year, in some instances, we only got one proposal, and some of the requirements from the federal funder for that requires that you actually get, you know, at least two. So sometimes we have to solicit more than once. That's sort of the one end of the spectrum. And then the other end of the spectrum is that sometimes we get, you know, a large number of responses. For some of the larger processes, the multifamily, we might get 10, 15 responses. So that, you know, there's a wide sort of variance of sort of what we get. And sometimes we don't know what we're going to get or not get, you know, when we begin these. And so sometimes there's some unknowns that then factor in for, you know, for the purposes of the CAC members, factor into the time commitment. So if we get one or two or three, it's one thing. If we get 12 or 15, you've got to read 12 to 15 proposals and score and rank those. You know, the time commitment can vary. So I just kind of want to make that point, and it's not to, you know, not to deter anyone, but just so you know that there are some factors in some of this.
But members will know whether or not it's 12 or.
No, they won't.
They won't.
Typically, you know, we don't know. Staff
Right.
and the city doesn't know until we've actually, you know, closed the process and begun doing the score and ranking. But we would identify the panel before the process closes so that we can prepare folks for, you know, for doing the scoring and ranking, and do some, you know, some pre-work around sort of just orienting you to the scoring rubric, et cetera, et cetera. So we typically don't know. And that also has been a factor in past years for CAC members where, you know, there was more of a time commitment than what they had anticipated. And so that's some of what has factored into some of the way that we do it now, just to kind of give some context.
Mr. Johnson?
I would just want to say, Mr. Chair, to emphasize the importance of CAC members serving on panels. One of the things that I've shared with the staff is that when you're constructing the panels, I do review all of the panels for all of the selection processes that we have here in the department. And it's a sort of a formula that we use. One is sort of like concentric circles. So we do have staff members who work on that particular area, but we also include other staff members who do not work on a daily basis on that area. And then we also will include, and this is sometimes staff members in other departments in the city. So if you can begin to see the circles, then sometimes we bring in expertise from other organizations. And then we also bring in citizens. That's where you all come in to participate and have a role in the process. And so obviously our panels we work to make sure that they are balanced in different ways, going to, you know, make sure we don't have conflicts. And of course, I look for race and gender and ethnicity and those sorts of things as well. But also this level of expertise and role and representation is important. And so I just would want to stress and encourage the participation, because it is deliberate the way we do it. There used to be a time when we had the process that the entire CAC reviewed grants, but that got kind of cumbersome because the rules kept changing, becoming more complex, and the time commitment that it took, particularly on the homelessness side, got to be rather burdensome. So we went to the system that I've just described to you to share, to be inclusive, and also offer citizen input as well. And so I just wanted to make sure that everyone was clear that it is with intention and deliberate that you have the opportunity to participate on the panels.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I think I might be the only member, maybe I don't know if Brian or Carl were in the old scoring way when we first kind of got on this board. We were like on the tail end. Yeah, that got to be pretty cumbersome. With all those RPs and then scoring them and all that stuff. So thank you, Matt, for that breakdown. I think we are on action item number 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Thanks so, Mr. Chair.
An overview of Community Development Department. Mr. Johnson, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just wanted to share a few things. And Matt, are you still sharing?
I believe I am. Maybe you can't see it.
Okay.
I can share again here.
No, don't share unless you have something that you want to.
I mean, I just had the agenda up
Okay,
on the screen.
okay. I'm gonna share something in a minute.
Do you want to share something, Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson? Okay, go ahead. I'll let you share.
Okay, great.
Let me just make sure I give you the right permissions, Mike.
So while he's doing that, a couple of things that I wanted to share and give an update on a couple of things before I share the information that I wanted to share relative to funding.
You should be able to share.
Okay,
now.
great. Three things I wanted to talk about was one, the audit report that I did share with everyone. We went before the Audit Services Oversight Committee this afternoon. It was pretty uneventful, but there was asked a few questions, but you have the report. There are some things there. They didn't find that we had any non-compliance in procurement, which is what we just talked about, which is very good to report, but they did share some things that we need to be on the lookout for as the operations of the department. And I wanted to let you know that we are doing those and we have those underway. And so I would encourage you to take a view at the report that I shared with you last Friday night or Friday evening that we talked about today. And so that was one of the things I wanted to give all the boards and commissions that we serve staff to have the opportunity to see that, know that that was going on. The next thing, to give an update on the Durham Emergency Rental Assistance Program. I think that since the last time we met, you've probably seen that there was a pause that the DSS and Community Development jointly issued, pause in processing of applications, receiving of applications effective October the 4th. And the main reason is for that is outlined in the news release, which you should have received, is to allow DSS to catch up with processing applications and ensure that there is enough resources to cover the applications that they have and will receive. And they wanted to take some time to do that. So we definitely agreed to that. And then in terms of ERAP 2 that the city has received, we're still under discussions with DSS on how we will proceed with some other funds. The applications that they have may in fact take up those funds. We don't know yet. That's one of the reasons that they're pausing. So I just wanted to mention those two things. And if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer. Otherwise, I'm going to share my screen and go to the next portion.
Any questions from the body? I guess I have one. Is the well running dry on the amount of money that we have in the coffer right now? Is there a pause because there's a feeling that DSS will not be able to handle or guarantee any assistance? Is that why there's kind of like that pause there to try to catch up to see whether or not we'll have enough money to handle the amount of claims or the amount of folks who are seeking assistance?
Yeah, that is the purpose, is to ascertain that. One of the things that we decided that was an important value is that we not keep taking applications until we are sure that we have the resources to, once those applications are approved, to disperse money for those applications, for those needs. It was not a need to just take applications without being assured that we would have the resources and we needed to pause to be able to do that with a degree of certainty. And so that's the reason. I don't know if that helped to answer your question that you asked. Are we running out of money? The money is not limited. I'm getting ready to talk about that in a minute. It's not unlimited. So there will be a time that the money will run out. We also know, and we shared this, before, there is not enough money to meet the needs, all the needs, and we know that. But at the same time, my position is we don't want to give false hope either. And so that's something that's also important to me as a value. So it takes the pause.
I got one quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Is what happens after the money is not there. Let's say, we have enough money to help folks get through at least the holiday. What happens to the folks who after the holiday need assistance, but there's no money available? What is the plan for that? Because my concern is that we only have enough money to help people for a short amount of months per se, but not enough for anybody that's new. That okay, maybe they didn't directly get hit with this first wave of needing assistance, but they hit later on. Are those folks who might need assistance after this well of money kind of dries up? Are they going to be able to seek assistance or no?
So I would say, let's keep in mind the sources of the funding. And so what's going to happen after this funding is expended is that we go back to DSS and the funding that they already had that they normally disperse for various situations. Remember that this funding that we're talking about is funding that has come from the federal government to meet these needs. Unless the federal government gives additional funding, which is a possibility, there won't be any more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the body before Mr. Johnson continues? All right, Mr. Johnson.
Okay, thank you. So one of the things that came up in the last meeting was a request of summary for our COVID relief funding that the Community Development Department is responsible for administering. This is different from the ARP funding, American Rescue Plan, which is American Rescue comes out of the federal words come out of the federal legislation. That was the title of the legislation. And Matt may be able to help me because sometimes I get which one's confused. But that's where the city received $50 million in ARP funding in there as a process. And I'm gonna go to the website to show it, but I think I showed the link gave the link in the last meeting. But what you have in front of you is the COVID relief funding that the Community Development Department is in charge of administering. Some of it was come from the CARES Act, and then some of it is from ARP. And so I just wanted to go through that. You see that different sources, I'm gonna go through these sources, but the total is about just over $25 million that the department received in the past 15 months, I would say. And just to give an order of magnitude, our highest budget allocation is, in the past few years has been around 20, maybe a high point of 22 million, 23 million. But this year it's 17 million for all of the work that we do. It's 17 million. In 15 months, we received another $25 million. So we are receiving in less than a year, more money than we received all year. So that's one of the challenges that we have. And of course, that was reflected in the audit that you received. But just to go through the list of funding, we had community development block grant funds, a total of $2.7 million. This is special funds for coronavirus had to be coronavirus related. For half of the, I think it was 1.1 of these $1.2 million of the 2.7 was actually given early in the year, a year ago, and that went to emergency rental assistance. That was the first money that we had that DSS distributed for us. This was before the ERAP money came. We also are using part of that money, the CDBG CV money, for a program with Office of Economic and Workforce Development to create opportunities for grant and loan programs for small businesses in low to moderate income areas. That's a contract we're working on right now to the tune of about $900,000. And then the balance of the money is about $500,000, $540,000 is actually a contract that was just approved, was slated to be approved the next council meeting by the City Council for a partnership with Durham Public Schools, where we're using the CDBG CV money to help with after school and in school COVID learning loss at 4 elementary schools. One of those is it's a Burton, Eastway, Fayetteville Street, and W.G. Pearson, the 4 schools at DPS. And so remember, these funds had to be, you have to have documented learning loss. Documented COVID ties. And also it has to be in low, moderate income areas, which is the same for CDBG money, whether it's COVID or whether it's regular. Just in the past week, we received a grant agreement for the Home Investment Partnership Funds. This was part of the American Rescue Plan for about $4.3 million. We have not made decisions on where that will be allocated. Right now, we're looking at something connected with the homelessness system. Then the ESGCV money is $2.6 million. And we did something with COVID relief as it relates to the shelters, if I'm not mistaken. Matt may know a little bit more about that. And then Hopper CV, we are still, I think we're adding that to some additional money. That's about $70,000 to some current contracts that we already have, mainly because of the small amount of money, but you still have to have the COVID tie. The money I'm getting ready to talk about now with ERAP 1 and ERAP 2, that's the Emergency Rental Assistance Program money that we were talking about with the chair. And so ERAP 1 money is the funds that we received so this must have been last fall. And we actually in partnership with DSS, and that was the main part of the funding that was used that's being distributed now. The county also had another $1 million in funding, just under $1 million that they had for ERAP 1. And so they combined that money, and they served as the administrator for those funds. Our portion of money has actually run out. That happened last week. And so what they're doing now, the county received another allocation directly to the county from the state. That's another $9 million that they have. And then they're going to actually receive some money on ERAP 2 to the tune just under another $1 million. And so that's ERAP 1 and their ERAP 2. Our ERAP 2, reason there's 2 portions down there. Part of it we've received already is $2.6 million. And then we, depending upon how the spending goes in terms of timing, then there's another just under $4 million that we will receive for ERAP 2. And all of that is for a total of about $25.2 million that we received through the Community Development Department for COVID relief funding. And all of this comes from the federal government. Some of it comes through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. I probably should have put that on here, but ERAP 1 and 2 comes from the U.S. Department of the Treasury. So I'll stand for any questions on that.
Any questions for Mr. Johnson? Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for that breakdown.
Okay, and we'll send this out to you. We'll send this out to you.
Maybe I have one question. I guess we do not know the money that DSS has, or what's the regularly allotted amount of money that we use if it wasn't a pandemic. What's that budget item look like, or how much is in that budget?
That I do not know. That's approved in their budget annually. So there was amount approved when they approved the budget in June. I wouldn't know. I don't know that number.
So after this 25 million is gone, whatever is left, it will be based on what the budget cycle was.
Yeah.
The budget that was approved by the county commissioners.
Right. So just like in community development, they have programs that's been ongoing. So these monies that we're talking about are on top of what already has been going on. You're on mute.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Matt, we'll go to the next item.
Hang on just a second. Let me get the agenda.
Oh, wait.
So I was trying to put some information in the chat as Mr. Johnson was talking for reference, and we can make sure everybody gets that after the meeting as well. Hang on a second.
While we're waiting for Matt, hopefully everybody's alive and well, and it's been a long day. So hopefully everybody is alive and well. And if you're watching us on YouTube, if anybody's watching us on YouTube, please, if you have any questions or please reach out to us and let us know. We will do our.
Mr. Chair, can you see the agenda back up on your screen there?
I do see it. So we're gonna. Okay, so this is following up on Community Development Week. So if y'all recall last month that we talked about Community Development Week as not waiting until the last minute or last, planning it in, within a month or two's time of when it occurs, and try to plan it throughout the year. And then we would meet, maybe once a month, once or two, as we get closer to Community Development Week. Ebony is not here, but I'm trying to remember who else had signed up to be a part of that subcommittee. I think Dr. Hyman was one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there anybody else besides Dr. Hyman? I think Jillian as well.
Jillian
as well. And was there anybody else? Well, if you didn't get a chance to sign up or didn't get a chance to say, hey, I would love to be a part of that subcommittee, you can reach out to myself or Ebony, and we will try to have a meeting this next month in October to kind of like start the framework of what we want Community Development Week to look like. So she's not here, so I'm just gonna move forward to other business.
And Mr. Chair, I believe I neglected to collect some examples of previous year's events, and I will follow up on that. I just wanted to, highlight, I believe that executive committee had asked me to do that. I had not done that yet, but I will collect that.
Yeah, and we can, Matt, whenever you get that opportunity, you just shoot as an email. It doesn't have to be on the next meeting. Move to, we could shoot an email.
Okay.
So any other business, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Snars, do you have any other business that you?
Just real quick, Mr. Chair, when is Community Development Week? April. Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to add one thing. During our last meeting, we brainstormed a list of topics that we'd like to cover. And I would just like everyone to know that in the minutes, we added the link to the wiki page that Matt has developed. And so he's added a lot of information, samples of, I think, proposals. What else, Matt, did you add to that so that it can ground the members? So I just encourage you to go to that wiki page. Do you want to give an overview of what?
Yeah, I can just reference that if that's the pleasure.
Absolutely.
Give me a second here, sorry.
I was going to see if whether or not you would be able to add your presentation to your next wiki page as well.
Yeah, so I've been trying to collect all the relevant information. Mr. Chair, can you see this wiki site that I've got here? It is really bare bones at this point, but it's really just a a Google site that we can put everything on. And so I did add we've had previous presentations that give overviews of the federal programs, Home and CDBG. And so I just added all those presentations on here, and everyone should have access to these and could download these if you wish. So each of the federal programs has a PowerPoint presentation that I've embedded into the site. And then we also have the CAC bylaws. Looks like I didn't enable them to be able to get access, but the bylaws and the boards and commission handbook is also linked on here. And once again, all of this stuff is on the city's website, different places, but wanted to just have a landing page that folks could easily kind of access these. And like I said, it looks like I didn't give. I got to go back into the Google Drive and just make sure that those are available and set up for people to be able to access. But once again, the idea is that this would just be a place that you could get information quickly and be able to get information that you need.
Is it possible on that as you continue to build it, to put minutes on that, or the YouTube?
Yeah. What I was going to do is on the homepage, I was just going to put the links to where we have the minutes that go to the city's agenda site center, but that's for all the boards and commissions. I was going to put the link for that on here, as well as links to the other meeting minutes, et cetera, et cetera. I just haven't gotten to that.
I mean, first of all, we're not trying to give you more work.
No, it's more work for me to be able to one-off sort of answer these questions for members. So this actually is not more work. It's a little bit of work at the beginning, but it's not. It makes it easier for us on the back end.
And then I would also suggest, I shared the YouTube live, like on my personal pages. It might be cool for members who maybe missed the meeting, still weren't informed of the meeting, to at least have the YouTube links on that page as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that, once again, that's all on, that all ends up, it ends up sitting on the city's website and associated with the committees, the boards and commissions. But once again, the thought process is that sometimes those aren't super easy to locate.
Right.
And so, certainly we'll connect those. Yep.
I guarantee, I know for a fact, nothing is navigate on either city or the county websites.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just that there's so much, the city and county, we have so many boards and commissions that it's not that it's not there. It's just, it's sometimes easier to just, if you could go to one place and it'll all sit in there.
Correct. All right. So I appreciate that. Mr. Johnson, did you have any other business?
No, but if you can refresh my memory, did I put in a link to the Forever Home Durham website?
In the minutes, or?
No, did I discuss that with the body?
We touched over it last month, we kind of touched over it, but we want to pull that up, or we can move it as to the, we can give an update on that, on the what the website.
We can do a update on the next at the next meeting.
Right.
I just want to make sure, I have so much information flowing through my head, I can't always remember what I've shared and what I have not. And so I wanted to make sure to do that. We can do it at the next meeting.
Yeah, we could definitely put that on the agenda item for the next meeting, which I feel like we'll have we'll definitely have more members, and there might be an opportunity for more, for more comments and questions based on that website. So agenda item number 7 is something that we discussed in the executive meeting. I'm on the Affordable Housing Implementation Committee, and part of their meetings, they do ask for public comment via the chat. And I felt like that was something that we needed to do better within this committee. We hope that people will want to attend our committee meetings, and we hope that people have, citizens have questions that they want answered based on the different experts we have to come speak, or even questions that we can answer as a board. So we will now have a public questions and comment portion of our meeting for the community. If the community has questions, we give them this space to ask them. And so if we have any questions or any comment.
Mr. Chair, just a point of order. So, and I mentioned this in the executive committee, we have the ability to and have the link to join these meetings, the public to join these meetings the way that you've referenced that occurs in the Affordable Housing Implementation Committee, but there are no public participants right now in the meeting. Now, the YouTube site would be, is available, and there may be comments on, there, but I'm not monitoring that. So I guess just to kind of give you make sure you have the right information there, that we don't have anybody from the public that is on this meeting right now.
10-4. And so we'll move forward. Any announcements from whether it be members or staff? This is I don't have any announcements. However, continue to promote this committee. All right, we're gonna, as an executive committee, we're gonna try to make sure that we have the topics that as a board that was stated in that first meeting. We're gonna have those topics. And I know that we can't control when people are sick, and we can't control maternity leave. We can't control a lot of things. We can't control, but the power of this board is dependent on is on the power of the members that attend the meetings. And so I'm hoping that we will have all 14. Right? Is it 14? I think I don't know if we have any. Was it 13 or 14?
15, Mr. Chair, total is the body.
15 members, and I don't know how many openings we still have.
We have two openings for the county. 2 of the county seats have openings right now.
So if you know anybody who wants to get involved in boards and commissions, tell them to go through the county and apply. We want diverse lenses and voices in these meetings. I'm very, very critical to that. There's a question. One quick question about the RFP reviews. Will Mr. Sean send us those opportunities as they are?
Yes.
So that we can express interest?
Yes, I will do that. Once we have the timelines, more firmly sort of developed and are at that point, I'll send requests for those opportunities to all the members of the committee.
Awesome. All right. Any other announcements before we take a motion for adjournment? And I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
And I will see everybody October the October something. October the 25th, I think. Yes, October the 25th in your best Halloween costume if you celebrate. just know that it has to be appropriate. And that, I'll see y'all later. Councilmember Freelon, we appreciate your presence, my brother. Y'all have a good rest of your week.
About to win the costume party.
Thank you.
All right.
Y'all, bye.
Bye.
Yeah.